Joshua. So, with regards to applying this technology to law enforcement, I believe there should be some processes which should be very scientific and highly sophisticated. Can you give us any idea what processes DNA evidences go through to be used as forensic evidence to implicate someone with regards to a crime?
Okay. With the processes, when one goes to the crime scene, you might find biological materials at the crime scene. And then one can also seek the consent of somebody that he or she suspects, and then pick some of the biological materials, and then send it to the lab. The person would have to get the biological material, like the DNA itself from the biological material, that is by extracting the DNA from it. And then after extracting the DNA, the person would have to amplify it and then get more sequences of the DNA. And then we have to profile it or analyze the genetic markers. And then we now compare it with a known sample, or we'll compare it to a database to see if there is similarity between the DNA sample you had from the crime scene or the suspect to your database. And then if you have that, it will narrow you down to the investigation or pinpoint the person to the crime scene. So these are the processes
that's quite fascinating. But with regards to that, I have a feeling there should be some form of bioethics and ethics with regards to that, because probably you may not be picking DNA evidence that belongs to the actual perpetrator, and then in that case you may be working or using biological material, which is private information of someone. So how does ethics, what's the story regarding ethics concerning forensic DNA evidence?
So I would start by saying that we found ourselves in a system where, unfortunately for us, we don't know more about, on this part of our world. But then ethically, if you are to take a DNA sample from a crime scene, the first thing you have to know that you need to keep it very private, because it's not all the time you have to be spreading out people's information. So even in some countries, they have implemented a law of data destruction and retention. So when you go to the crime scene and take a data, they would have a number of days you have to keep it. So after your extraction and all that, and you're able to pinpoint your perpetrator, you have to destruct the data sample, because they perceive it can be used afterwards. So like in a situation where you get a blood sample from somebody and you use it against that person, and later on you can still use that blood sample to frame somebody that is the person who did the act. So after using it, you have to destroy it. So we need to keep it very private and also follow the ethical rules that guards all of this. We need to follow all the rules that has been put in place to take these data samples.
So if I understand, regardless of the jurisdiction, ethics and proper legal frameworks needs to be established to govern the use of forensic DNA evidences.
Yes. Yeah, as we know, science is very broad, and we just don't walk into a lab and do what we want. We are being governed by this ethics. So everywhere we find ourselves, as science students, and more to the point, forensic science students, let's discipline ourselves and follow these rules and regulations.
That's great. You want to add something?
Yeah, so like my colleague was saying, in every institution there are rules and regulations governing how you should behave and what you should do. So in some countries there are very stringent rules that govern the use of this forensic evidence. But in our part of the world where forensic is still developing, there are not much rules that govern how it is used. But everywhere you go, there are rules that govern the usage of these forensic evidences and what you can do with them.
Okay, talking about development and with regards to jurisdictional issues and challenges, Ghana is one of the countries that can be considered as